Audio made possible by www.jackettome.com. Warning. The following has suggestive content that is not suitable for some listeners. Audio Fanfiction Productions presents Wide Awake. Fanfiction written by Angskata003. Fanfiction inspired by the Twilight Saga written by Stephanie Meyer. Chapter 24. Candy Cane Surprise. Bella's point of view. The 6 nights leading up to Christmas were amazing. Every night when I'd enter Edward's bedroom, he'd pull off my hood and give me a kiss at the door. It was my new favorite part of the night. I'd still unload his food on the bed when he pulled away, and I'd still go to the sofa and read the books he got me. I tried to keep things as normal as they ever were. I'd begin removing my hoodie once I was inside. Edward seemed to like that. I never wore anything quite as revealing as the blue sweater, but it was still a leap for me. We kept things simple and light, never venturing into conversations regarding our pasts, or our current relationship or lack thereof. It didn't upset me. I was being patient. Sometimes I wanted to climb back down the lattice just to come back up and get another kiss. There was some kind of silent rule about not kissing once we were in bed. I wasn't sure what it was related to, but I was always followed it. Edward still gave me a soft kiss on the top of my head before he pulled away every morning. And once I was dressed and ready to leave, I'd drop off his cookies, and he'd sit up to kiss me on the cheek. I think he had a thing about morning breath or something, but I wouldn't have minded. He had been acting the same as always. No more and no less distant. I was rather relieved that we had established a pace, and he was happy with it. Alice was spending most of her time in Port Angeles during the days, leaving me home alone when I'd refused to go with her. My days were mostly boring. I'd flip through Edward's old sketchbook sometimes, or read one of the books he insisted I take home with me. 2 days before Christmas, I broke down and went shopping with Alice. I still had to buy presents for her and me, and I wanted to get something special for Edward. We never discussed exchanging presents, but I wanted to have one in case he ended up buying me something. I was still hoping he didn't. I efficiently dodged Alice in the mall that afternoon, and went off on my own. I hugged the walls and cringed into my hoodie as I walked the large building. As soon as I saw it, I knew it was I wanted to give Edward. It was very symbolic, not expensive or anything. And after I was home with it, I got really scared that it was a bad idea to give it to him. It was possibly a little too symbolic. Ever since my trip to Phoenix, I had been wrestling with the notion that I was in love with Edward. I still didn't know exactly what it was supposed to feel like, or if I was even capable. But I did know that whatever I felt for him was as close as I'd ever get. And I was comfortable calling it love. It was a scary notion to be in love with someone. Especially someone like Edward, who quite possibly could never love me back. And not because he didn't want to, and not because I wasn't good enough, which is probably a fact anyways. But more, because he had been too damaged and scarred by the people he had loved to allow himself to. I wrapped it up anyways, deciding that it was very possible that he wouldn't quite grasp the entire symbolism of it. So at 10 on Christmas Eve, I packed the little box in the bottom of my bag, along with all his food, and a bag of candy cane surprise cookies. Alice was pretty exhausted from her week of shopping, so she was out like a light before I even started on the cookies. I lined up the bags of cookies on the counter before I walked out the door. One each for Esme, Alice, Jasper, and Emmett. It was cold out tonight, but I had expected that, and come prepared with a thick sweater under my hoodie. I drew my hood up on the back porch, and began making my way across the yards. I climbed the lattice easily, nearly snorting at the memory of Edward worrying I'd get hurt doing it. I could climb this thing in my sleep with one hand tied behind my back. Once I was over the railing and safely on the balcony, I tapped on Edward's door. He opened it rather quickly, likely having been waiting on me. Once his green eyes met mine, I smiled widely at him. I couldn't help but smile when I looked into his eyes. His bronzed hair rusted in the cold breeze as he stepped aside to let me in. As soon as I was over the threshold and he had the door closed, he reached up and slid my hood off, letting my hair free. I turned to face him, anticipating the very best part of my day. He smiled crookedly at me and grabbed my face between his hands. I smiled back, enjoying the feeling, as he rubbed my bottom lip firmly with his thumb and leaned in to take it in between his lips. My knees always got weak as soon as his lips met mine, but I just sucked his top lip into my mouth, snaking my arms around his neck and up to tangle into his soft messy hair. I sighed as he darted his tongue out against my lips. I parted my lips without hesitation, needing to feel his tongue against mine. He pressed my face closer to his as he entered my mouth, massaging my tongue with his slowly and lazily. I moaned at the taste of him, pulling him closer so I could deepen the kiss. He removed one of his hands from my face and snaked it around my waist, pulling my body flush to his as I forced my tongue into his mouth. As soon as my body touched his, he groaned, and I almost pouted against his lips, because that groan always meant the same thing. He pulled away. Tonight was no different. He backed away, planting one last chase kiss on my wet lips, and stroking my cheek with his thumb as I opened my eyes. I smiled at him, not letting all my disappointment show, taking what I could get. He smiled back, and finally released my face, walking over to the bed, while I removed my book bag from my shoulders. I unzipped it carefully, removing the containers of the Christmas Eve meal I had made and placing them on the bed for him while I licked the remainder of his taste off my lips. He flopped down in the center of the bed and began uncovering the containers with enthusiasm. I chuckled and made my way over to the leather sofa, dropping my bag on the ground and removing my hoodie before I settled into the cold leather. I leaned down and removed my shoes, while he began devouring the food. Once they were off, I crossed my legs on the sofa Indian style and reached down beside me to pick up the book I had started the night before. I wasn't really reading so much as listening to him enjoy the meal. I had a small smile on my face as I flipped the pages, acting like it was holding my attention. I could tell when he was done because all the moans stopped and I could hear him covering the containers back up. I peeked up at him from under my eyelashes and watched as he set them beside the bed. He met my gaze and smiled.
"Fucking delicious,"
he said simply, just like he always did. I smiled at him in thanks and returned my gaze to my book, furrowing my brows and realizing I had to go back 2 chapters to really understand what was even going on in the story. He cleared his throat, getting my attention as I peeked up at him again, leaning back against his headboard with his legs straight and his feet crossed.
"I have a present for you,"
he smirked. I frowned and closed my book. "I don't like you spending money on me, Edward," I said, sincerely and embarrassed that I would definitely have to give him my present now. He snorted.
"Bullshit. You can't bitch about Christmas gifts."
He reached down below his bed and pulled out a small box, wrapped in Christmas paper.
"I heard somewhere it was root or some shit,"
he said smugly, placing the rectangular box in the middle of the bed. He patted the spot in front of it.
"Now get your ass over here and open it."
He smirked, clearly excited at the idea of giving me something. I huffed indignantly and lifted myself off the sofa, already blushing. Either at the idea of him buying me a gift, or the idea of what I was going to give him, I wasn't sure. I shuffled my way to the bed, leaving his gift in my bag to give me a chance to back out. I climbed up onto the mattress, watching as he relaxed against the headboard again with a smirk on his face and climbed over to the present, sitting Indian style in front of it. I pursed my lips at the box and tilted my head, wondering how much money could be spent on something that particular size. The conclusion wasn't good. I could practically hear Edward roll his eyes as he let out an exasperated sigh from the headboard. I grimaced as I reluctantly picked the gift up and brought it into my lap. I tore the festive paper off, Glancing at Edward once to see his smirking at the white box I had uncovered.